SEC power rankings right now. Caleb, let's start from the bottom, and I want to see.
Drake.
Yes, I want to see where the Vols finish, because your power rankings are much better than the AP poll, where Tennessee was 7 and in the coaches poll 8. I may have those flip-flopped, but let's go ahead and get to the power rankings now. From the bottom to the top, what do you got?
All right, and by the way, I have some sympathy for me, because, and anybody who had to do SEC power rankings this weekend, do you know how hard it was, Dave, to do SEC power rankings this weekend?
Yeah, very difficult. I was like, go for it, buddy, if you want it.
Yeah. All right, so number 16, the easy one, Mississippi State. They were already the worst team in the SEC, and they didn't play, so they get to stay the worst team in the SEC.
Okay.
Right now.
All right.
Next is number 15, Auburn. Again, the second worst team in the SEC. They covered the spread against Georgia, but that was a Georgia team having a hangover from a tough loss the week before. That doesn't say anything good about Auburn.
Got no argument with that. Who's next?
Number 14, and they're stuck at 14, but guess what? Florida, the Gators are on a 2-game winning streak. They beat UCF 24-13. Billy Napier is engineering a comeback, guys, and now they get to face a Tennessee team that Florida historically owns. But
okay, I'm just going to tell you that Tennessee is going to hammer Florida. But we'll get to that more. Okay, who's next? That's a tomorrow topic.
Number 13, South Carolina. Despite showing promise for a few weeks, Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks proved that they are fraudulent and got absolutely draxed by Ole Miss over the weekend.
Okay.
That's hot.
Who's next?
Number 12 is, and this is the only undefeated team that I dropped significantly for losing, and I'm talking obviously about Missouri. They fell all the way to number 12, and that is because that was the most fraudulent undefeated team in October in the history of SEC football.
If I put 8 at the over-under, where do you think they finish at the end of the year?
Under. That was
like better than 8 or worse than 8?
Worse than 8. Than 8. I think
okay. That's hot.
I agree. All right, who's next?
Yeah. Okay, so number 11. Didn't play, but Brent Venables' team in Oklahoma get to stay at number 11 for now, but they fell to number 11 because some other teams just pulled off upsets, so they had to drop. But they still have everything to play for.
What do you think about that, Brent Venables?
They're like, that is total bullshit.
Well, I agree with Caleb, though. All right, what's next?
Number 10. I was able to move Vanderbilt up to number 10. Now, maybe you guys think they should be higher, but I can't just pretend they didn't lose to Georgia State and Missouri in overtime, and they got a great win against Alabama. But again, power rankings are, you can't get fooled by one afternoon. If Vanderbilt played Alabama tomorrow, Dave, who would you pick?
Well, Alabama, certainly.
Yeah, so Alabama, and it's still going to be ahead of Vanderbilt in the power rankings to me.
Yeah, and I watched the press conference of Kalen DeBoer. I don't think he truly realizes how troublesome that could be if Alabama, let's say, slips up, loses a couple games, and doesn't make the college football playoff because of a loss to Vanderbilt. I mean, that's a stain on your resume. You go back to Nick Saban. Was it UAB that they lost to when he was at LSU the week before they played Tennessee?
Yep.
I mean, I guess those are similar, but I don't know what UAB finished that year, but he had better have the same reaction that Nick Saban's team did, and that was beating the Vols the next week and going on to a solid year, eventually winning the national championship under Saban, not that year, but later. All right, who's next?
All right, so next, I just was at number 10. Number 9 is Arkansas. Like Vandy, Arkansas scored a huge upset win over the weekend. Even though Vanderbilt's upset win, you could say was more impressive because I had Alabama ahead of Tennessee. I have Arkansas ahead of Vanderbilt just because I think Arkansas is actually the better team. So Arkansas.
That's hot.
Yeah, I agree with that. Clark Lee says
they're like, that is total bullshit.
Yeah, Clark Lee's not happy with that at all.
Number 8, I've got Ole Miss. They're up to number 8. That was a great rebound to blow out South Carolina the way they did. And now, given what happened, they're as much in the running as anybody once again.
Yeah, I haven't heard Tennessee's name called yet, and I thought that they might be lower than 8. All right, who's next?
Nope, and I'm going to keep going. So number 7 is Kentucky. Not playing, but they still have that win over Ole Miss. And unlike Arkansas and Vanderbilt, they beat Ole Miss at Ole Miss. So if those two played on a neutral field right now, I still think Kentucky might be favored.
That's hot.
Okay, what about Tennessee? Would they be favored over Kentucky on a neutral field right now?
Yes.
Yes, I agree. Okay. But we're going to get to the point, if Tennessee slips up again, that the odds makers are going to go the other direction after getting burned by Tennessee. With Josh Heupel going over most of the time. And now if Tennessee doesn't get their stuff figured out, I don't know what the line's going to be moving forward. All right, go ahead.
All right, number 6. And it's funny you just bring them up, but number 6, I have Alabama. And by the way, they should be concerned. And we talked about this in the recent segment. And Dave, here's why they should be concerned. They didn't just lose at Vanderbilt. And I kept telling you guys this last week, you and John, that second half, they jumped out to a 28-0 lead over Georgia and then blew that lead in the second half and needed a last-second touchdown to make sure they won that game. They haven't played good football since the first half against Georgia when Georgia was sleepwalking.
Yep, I was going to bring that up. They played 6 quarters of bad football. All right, so who's next?
And number 5, yeah, and y'all can think I'm crazy, but I still have Tennessee at number 5. I don't think a loss to Arkansas on the road is enough to just totally say they're terrible now.
Okay, who's next?
Number 4 is not playing, but LSU. And yeah, you can put the X in my name now, but they have a bye. They only have 1 loss to USC. Brian Kelly's team is getting better, and Garrett Nussmeier is top 6 in the nation in passing right now. So, guys, they're starting to look like what we thought they were going to look like with Garrett Nussmeier, and they had a bye, so they could be very dangerous coming out.
All right, the final 4 brought to you by Chattanooga Mortgage. Congratulations, your home search just got easier. Buying a home in Chattanooga has never been easier with Chattanooga Mortgage. Right below, go to chatmortgage.com, chatmortgage.com, and tell Bruce that Off the Hook Sports sent you. Who's next, Caleb?
All righty, so up next is Texas A&M is number 3. They brought back Connor Wegeman, and guys, my belief in Mike Elko is turning out to be true. They are coaching well.
What about Mike Elko dropping an F-bomb in the post-game press conference? Did you hear that?
Yeah, I actually wanted to save that as a topic for tomorrow because it was something about how it reflects Eli Drinkwitz's character. But Mike Elko has
I've always loved taking shots at Eli Drinkwitz. Hit the like and subscribe button. Who's next?
All right, so number 2, I got Georgia at number 2. I know they had an ugly win at Auburn and lost Alabama the week before, but Dave, come on. Who would you favor if Georgia played anybody else in the SEC outside of the number 1 team? You'd favor Georgia.
Hey now.
Yes. All right. And if this game that you're getting ready to mention was at Athens, I think Georgia. Actually, I guess I'm going to disagree with you. I think Georgia would be a favorite over your number 1, which I'm sure is going to be Texas.
Yes. Before I get there, are you willing to come back to me now to say Georgia will be a tougher game for Tennessee than Alabama?
Yeah, I still think that something was wrong with Carson Beck's shoulder against Alabama, but he looked like he had the zip back last weekend. So I'm going to back off that and say that it was, I'm going to say that something was wrong, but he doesn't totally lack arm strength. I still don't think he's going to be anywhere close to the number 1 pick in the NFL draft, but there we go. So you would definitely take Texas as a what favorite if they were playing Georgia at a neutral site?
And yes, Texas is number 1 in my SEC power rankings because they're the only undefeated team. But I would take Texas. I mean, I would borderline make it a pick 'em. I would almost maybe say Texas would be favored by like 1. And I'll say I wouldn't be surprised if the odds makers favored Georgia in that game. And this is where the power rankings somewhat have to factor in what's going on right now. Like, even though I think Georgia might be favored over Texas, you can't put them over Texas in your power rankings right now based on how teams are playing right now.
Agreed. And give Texas a lot of credit because I know they've got a great backup quarterback in Arch Manning, but anytime you have a quarterback disruption, I mean, there can be issues there, and it doesn't seem like they faced much of that. They weren't great. Arch Manning wasn't great 2 weeks ago, but he's still been way more than competent.